In 3 years since the Wii U's release, Nintendo has shifted over 10 million units. To put this into perspective, the Dreamcast shifted 500,000 more than this at the time of its demise and had been out a year less. The Xbox One, released a year later than the Wii U, has sold approximately the same, and the PlayStation 4 has shifted over 25 million units, which is over double. The Wii U is currently Nintendo's worst selling home console, even sitting a fair way behind the GameCube, which sounds bad, really bad. So, given these poor sales, the question is, just how bad is Nintendo's financial situation? Let's take a look. Their PE ratio is decidedly average, their revenue growth last year was down by over 12%, and their average volume is approximately 280,000. Not great. However, despite this, revenue spiked in March of this year and has steadily been on a healthy growth since. Now, anyone who knows Nintendo will understand that they are not interested in competitive number crunching, and rightly so. They set their own targets and goals to keep themselves financially viable and profitable, a practice in which they are extremely skilled and one that is clearly working. However, given how devastating the impact Wii U sales have had on the company, dropping significantly since the Wii's success, they are holding themselves up pretty well. So how are they doing this? Well, they have a fairly large sum in the bank from the Wii, the 3DS has sold over 50 million units, and Amiibos are taking the world by storm. In fact, in such a short space of time, they've already accumulated higher numbers than the Wii U itself. So what does this all mean? Can Nintendo sustain themselves on Amiibos alone? Unlikely. Nintendo may be competent enough to avoid waving any white flags, but it doesn't mean they haven't got a fight on their hands either. Now, before E3, there was a conception or premise of excitement as people speculated what Nintendo would bring to the table. E3 is a fundamental mass advertising opportunity, and with Wii U sales being low and rumours being ubiquitous, expectations were high. Would they announce a third Mario Galaxy game, show more Zelda footage, perhaps even an NX announcement? No. There was none of that. Interestingly, what they did give us is Starfox. Not Mario, not Link, and certainly not Samus. Fans made that last one the mentally perspicuous. Holy cow! No, they gave us Starfox, showcased using one of the most impressive promotional puppet movies I've ever seen. In the short film, the 3 leading Nintendo executives walk down a hallway in Kill Bill fashion before arriving on stage to make an announcement.
I just have to remember my words.
They then begin to morph into Starfox characters, causing their crew to be understandably perplexed. This chap here I find to be particularly amusing, as he looks absolutely flabbergasted. I mean, how would you react if you saw a bunch of people turning into animals? Anyway, eventually we see the Starfox crew, who then introduce the newest game of the series, Starfox Zero. And you know what? The more I think about it, the more releasing Starfox as a business strategy to Nintendo's failing console, the more it actually seems to make sense.
Hey, Fox, do a barrel roll.
Yeah, come on, Fox, do a barrel roll.
Yeah.
Barrel roll? I can do better than that. Check this out.
Let me explain. So as you may or may not know, Star Fox, or Star Wing as it was known in the UK, was originally released on the SNES in 1993. The game had revolutionary graphics for the time and introduced us to the Starfox crew, a team of mercenaries doing paid work to stop the uprising of a maniacal scientist called Andros. With a captivating story, distinctive graphics and fluid dynamics, this was an instant hit and the start of a very beloved and special franchise. A sequel was made that improved on the original and is described by those fortunate enough to have played it as one of the best in the series. However, even though fully complete, the game sadly never made release, yet many of its elements were reused and reintroduced for future installments, such as the Walker, which will return in Star Fox Zero. Star Fox 2 also incorporated 2 characters that have yet to make an appearance in the series, Mayu and Faye. The game never saw the light of day as the N64 was on the horizon and Miyamoto didn't want to release a strong franchise on an older console. Of course, if able to prognosticate, he would have foreseen a 1.5 delay to the N64's launch and the game would have been released. Unfortunately, Miyamoto, however skilled and talented, does not have the ability to predict the future, to the best of my knowledge. How shocking is that? To rub a bit of salt into the wound, Nintendo also have absolutely no plans to release this on Virtual Console, which is a crying shame as I think it would be a massive hit. Now, as a child at the time of Star Fox's original debut, I was tragically deprived of the game's experience. This was mainly due to my prejudiced disdain towards anything Nintendo. At the time, Sega's questionably unscrupulous advertising campaign caused my innocence to be conceptually integrated with abhorrent aversion towards Nintendo and their beloved plumber, which I carried through my entire childhood.
Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
My departure from adolescence, though, was significant enough to put my preconceptional juvenalistic attitude into submission. Quite simply, I grew up and realised how biased and tenacious I had been towards Sega and how their ingenious marketing had so shrewdly manipulated me to the point that I was actually scribbling over one of my classmates' drawings of Mario, which was very, very sad. Bear in mind though, I was about 6 and had been successfully brainwashed. Looking back now though, with a mature and analytic and methodical eye, while now interested in the complexions of human psychology and the power of cunningly astute media and advertisement, I realise how commonplace these practices are, and how it's all just a good sport in a dog-eat-dog world with competitive power struggle in the quest for green paper and gold bars. It's just business after all, of which I hold no grudges at all. The point is, I missed a great deal of awesomeness because of it, and did not experience Nintendo's magic until after the N64's launch. Now, shortly after a binge absorption of Mario 64, which was more or less borderline obsessive gameplaying, I finally completed the plumber's first fully 3D adventure with all 120 stars. My life was now meaningless and pointless, and school was looming over me like a black rain cloud. I was also broke. But Christmas was only a few months away, which I of course would take the opportunity to bolster my current N64 collection of 1. Being more or less a Nintendo virgin, I read many magazines to astute what was worth getting, which, given each game was around £60, was certainly a worthwhile venture. There were about 3 games that stood out at the time. Those were GoldenEye, Mario Kart 64 and Lilac Wars, Starfox 64 in America and Japan. Not having the internet at the time, I was literally putting my trust in journalists of magazines to determine what I would get. I asked for Lilac Wars for Christmas, knowing absolutely nothing about Star Fox or its predecessors, yet the concept was exciting, intriguing, and something deep down just told me it was going to be great. Maybe it was my inner fanboy or something. Oh god. I'm not going to lie, I was also looking forward to owning a Rumble Pack, an innovative Nintendo design that is now commonplace across all platforms. Firing Star Fox 64 up for the first time was truly an invigorating experience. The opening scenes were like the beginning of a movie. You might think that it's sad, but I can still recall the entire opening dialogue, word for word. What's truly special about this game is how involved it made you feel. As I flew for Corneria, circumnavigating ravines and blasting bad guys, my teammates, who had clear defined personalities and backgrounds, would call on me for action.
I'll take this one. Get the one behind me.
And depending on a combination of how quickly I reacted, how skilled I was, or simply what I chose to do, will determine not just a variation in dialogue, but an entirely different outcome and potentially a different route. For example, if I fly underneath all these archways and Falco will swoop in and ask me to follow him. This route leads me through a waterfall, where I'll eventually encounter this boss here. However, if I simply fly through the level as normal, then I will reach this angry monkey instead. Each level varies tremendously, and each new direction sheds more light on the story and the characters, meaning if you wanted to complete the game several times over, there was a big incentive to do so because the story was so involving. Here's another example. When following this train, Peppy asked me to switch all the switches. If I fail, I end up having to fight this robot on the back of the train, leading to a challenging battle. If I succeed, the railway switches over and the train goes headfirst into a building. The boss is wiped out in an instant, and it leads on to the biggest and most satisfying explosion in the whole game.
No! Give them way! Okay, stop it!
If we go this way, Slippy actually gets knocked onto a treacherous planet, and we then have to divert the mission to go rescue him.
Slippy!
What are you doing? It's too dangerous there.
I can't leave Slippy hanging.
Slippy!
I knew you'd come help me.
And if all that's not enough, you could achieve medals for maximising your scores, offering huge replay value for skilled players wanting more. I'm trying to think of a sophisticated and justified way to describe this game, but all I can muster up is, it's freaking awesome. Anyway, Star Fox 64 is probably the franchise's finest moment to date. It was a critically acclaimed masterpiece that was massive fun to play, had enormous replay value, and characters people actually cared about. Even revisiting now after all this time brings out a huge nostalgic grin across my face. Every moment, from the giant explosions, the dogfights, the quirky cameos, the Independence Day reference, Falco's attitude, the epic story, Fox's father, Slippy's analysis, man, I missed that when he got captured, the trippy psychedelic warp zone, the Landmaster, the Thunderbirds reference, shooting Andros in the brain, The alternative routes, the bosses, the medals, defeating Wolf, the music, and of course, who can forget, doing a barrel roll.
Do a barrel roll! Do a barrel roll! Do a barrel roll! Do a barrel roll!
The game is just phenomenal and holds strong nearly 20 years later. It was the only Star Fox game to grace the N64, and we didn't see another installment in the series until September 2002, where it was followed up by what is now known as the most controversial entry in the series, Star Fox Adventures. Of which I would love to get onto right now, but this video has taken me a lot longer than I anticipated, probably because I'm a perfectionist and insist on making borders and backgrounds and checking and rechecking the visuals and audio so it's the best as it can be, yada 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 yada. So I've split this video into 2 parts, and this is the end of the first part. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.